Today, let's talk about emergency fund. If you've been wondering what exactly is an emergency fund, why do I hear about it everywhere that I turn? Are emergency funds for things like cancer or an accident or a chronic disease or something? What exactly does emergency fund do? And having an emergency fund, am I not, praying bad things for myself? Is it even possible to have an emergency fund in this modern day Nigeria with the inflation rates and the way prices of things have really gone up? In this video, your money friend Fadikemi will be here to explain what is an emergency fund, how much you should have in your emergency fund, what does it entail. So yeah, if you're interested, make sure to keep watching. Before we proceed, please, I'm begging you, subscribe. I find that because I don't say subscribe enough, a lot of people don't know that they should subscribe. Please, I'm trying to grow this channel. If you subscribe to my other channel, no, this is not the same channel. So please, Edako, Biko, how do they say please in Igbo? Please subscribe. I'm your money friend Fadikemi. On this channel, we talk about all things money. Okay, so what is an emergency fund? An emergency fund is basically a pot of money you set aside for unexpected expenses that come up in life. It is like a financial safety net, just something that you just put in place and say, okay, in case of incasity. I know that that's not a real word, but that's something we say a lot in Nigeria. In case of incasities, in case of things that happen. Basically, emergency funds help you not to go into debt when situations happen. So, for example, you lose your job now. I know that naturally the Nigerian thing to say is, God forbid, I can never lose my job. But people lose their jobs. Christians, yes, Muslims, no matter your religion, you can't lose your job. So an emergency fund serves as like an insurance fund, like normal insurance where something happens, they pay you back. So emergency fund, but the difference between emergency fund and an insurance fund is like you are responsible for that fund. So you can take your money when you see that there's a problem. But the problem is that a lot of people take the money when there is no emergency. So when the emergencies come, there's problem. Like, why are you going out on a date and pulling out of your emergency fund? Wrong now. But yeah, so we're gonna get to all of that. But yeah, I just had to put that in. Now, how much should you have in your emergency fund? As a Nigerian, most of these videos we see, most of all these personal finance videos we watch, like I follow a lot of personal finance YouTubers. Most of these videos we watch, most of this content we see, they are all abroad people. They can't relate with us. They can't understand our pain. They are not in Tinubu's government with us. So they may not really get it. So I've seen someone who said, 12 months emergency fund. And I'm like, you mean I should save? Okay, so this is the idea of emergency. Let me not rush. Let me make the point clear. So people always advise that you save as per the number of months that you can spend. Let me break it down. So if in a month you spend 200k, in a month you spend 100k, you save 100k, you save your emergency fund, you build your emergency fund up until the point of if you want to do 3 months, for example, you say that's 300k emergency fund. That should be in your emergency fund. So in that instance, you build your emergency fund up to 300k. That's having a 3 months. If it's 6 months, that's 600k. If it's 12 months, that's 1.2 million. So you can't build an emergency fund if you don't have you don't know how much you spend in a month. So the first step is to go and say, how much do I spend in a month? I spend how much do I spend on data, how much do I spend on feeding, how much do I spend on this, how much do I spend on that, how much do I spend on this. Those are the things that emergency fund is for. You're using it to save up for things that you have to take care of if there's a job loss. I think the most reasonable reason to have an emergency fund is actually for that job loss reason, because if you're saving for an accident now, you don't know how much an accident will cost if it happens. You don't know how much maybe a sickness can take from you. But if you have it saved up, if a sickness happens, at least you know that you can pull out something. That's the idea. But the ideology is to save your living expenses up until 3-6 months. Now back to what I was saying earlier. I said some people have said 12 months. I saw a video that said that 12 months, and she gave a very valid argument, but it's not totally realistic because you're in Nigeria. But of course you can keep building it. You can build your emergency fund for 1 year. Like, you can keep building it. Like, today you put 10k there, tomorrow you put 20k, next week you put 30k, you put 40k. It is you, right? So you can keep building it. I'm not saying that when you've gotten to 6 months that you stop. Although some people advise that you should stop when you get to 6 months because it's not good to save too much. But my dear, if you have the money, keep putting it there. But what is advisable for me, what I'll say is within 3 to 6 months is very advisable. That's even like most universally agreed timeline. Yeah. So within 3 to 6 months, save up that your living expenses. You can't save everything in your income, but you can save your living expenses so that in case of a job loss or in case of something, you have something to at least fall back to while you are job hunting. But here's the thing: should I save 3 months or should I say 6 months? Which one are you saying? Which one is 3 to 6 months? How do I decide that? I think it depends on your level of income and the frequency of your income. So if you are like a salary earner, you have consistent income, or you are married, or you are single, relationship status, consistency of income, what you're doing in the season you are financially. You could be in a debt repayment season. That will determine what you would do. But if you want to go for the 3 month option, I think it's advisable for people that are like married, they have children that they are feeding, and probably they have a one income family. That is advisable. If you're single, you don't really have much that you do with your money, it's advisable to go for the 6 month option. Now, what is the difference between an emergency fund and a savings fund? The difference is that an emergency fund, you're not going to touch it. An emergency fund, you don't put it in what I advise, because we're in Nigeria, let's talk about Nigerian conditions. You don't put your emergency fund in like piggy vests, Cowrywise, all these apps. That is not advisable. Well, for something like PiggyVest, you can put it like in the Flex Naira account. But even me, I still don't, because at the end of the day, all these apps, they can always pack up. Even Nigerian banks can pack up. We heard about Heritage Bank that recently, packed up. So any bank can pack up, but like Nigerian banks are more. We expect that they are more solid than all those fintech apps. So don't put your emergency fund in. Don't go and start looking for interest. Emergency fund is not to look for interest. It is to save for the future. So yes, put your emergency fund in like a high interest savings account, right? Like a proper Nigerian bank. Just be putting the money there. Just leave it there. Don't have an ATM card for it, right? So make the account in such a way that you don't go putting your hand in it every time you have a slight inconvenience, but at the same time you can access it. So if you don't have an ATM card now, you can always go to the bank and say, okay, I want to collect my account. You can always do maybe a quick, like I have an emergency fund account that I don't have an ATM card for that account. I just left it like that. I made it as my source account. I did not put my emergency fund in PiggyVest. That's not a good idea. But it's not like I'm saying PiggyVest will crash, but I'm just saying, because the thing is, investing is a risk, and we're all taking risk at the end of the day. So that's what I'll say about having an emergency fund. So question of the day: do you have an emergency fund? Is this the first time you're hearing about it, or do you have fund that you're just saving, but you're not calling it emergency fund, but you know that at least the fund can help you in the future? Or are you in I've never saved emergency fund before, how can I save emergency fund in Nigeria? Let me know in the comment section. So for the Nigerian, we know that Nigeria is a peculiar situation. Can we actually have an emergency fund in Nigeria? I think you can. It just depends on you being intentional. And I feel like you don't have to follow, like when it comes to personal finance, you don't have to follow everything book by book, like every word someone says, because it is personal to you, and you're the one that knows what is pinching you in your feet. You're the one that knows the expenses that are on your head. You're the one that knows the people that you're sending to school, right? If you have 3 children, I have 2 children. If you have 4 children, I can't compare myself to you, right? Because obviously you have more expenses than I do. The kind of school that my children are going to is different from the kind of school that you're going to. The things I spend on are different from the things that you spend on. So that's why it's about you deciding by yourself, but just trying your best. Just be putting something there, even if it's 5,000 every month. If you put 5,000 every month for this year, that's 60k. Next year, 60k. Next year, don't touch it. In like 4 years plus interest, all these things, you'll probably have like almost 500k there, and that will be helpful in case of something going wrong. One thing I want to also say is, please don't use your emergency fund for inconveniences. So for example, you exceed your budget for the month and you're like, what do I do, you go and pull out from your job. Don't do that. Struggle. If you exceed your budget for the month, just remain like that. Sakpa, keep the sakpa like that. And next thing I'll say also is, don't overstretch yourself, don't over save in your emergency fund, so that you won't have to just be putting in and taking back. It's silly. If you're doing that, it has defeated the purpose of an emergency fund. So let me know your thoughts about this video. Was it helpful? If it was, leave a comment saying I found this video really helpful and I'm definitely starting my own emergency fund. Please also give this video a thumbs up and also subscribe. Subscribing is absolutely free. You get amazing content on this channel. Yes, if I do say so myself. All right guys, I'll see you in my next video.